afternoon, folks. I would like to welcome you today to our online info session for the Digital Marketing Certificate Program at Ashton College. My name is Marianne. I'm from the Marketing and Communications team. We have Justin here today, who's a part of the Digital Marketing faculty at Ashton College, and he'll be answering questions about digital marketing and its career path. Justin, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me, Maria.
Of course. As well, we have Adam and Demi in the back end monitoring our online chat. There's lots of ways to engage. Yes, there's lots of ways to engage with us during the session, and we love hearing your questions. On Zoom, you can use the chat box, the question and answer box, or the raise hand function. If you're tuning in on Facebook Live, you can leave us a comment, and we can answer your question live during the chat. If you're watching this video on YouTube, you can leave us a comment or give us a call at 604-899-0803 or toll free at 1-866-75 96006. Could you start by sharing with us what is digital marketing? How is it similar or different to traditional marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think digital marketing is a very broad term, right? That people use very often, also very broadly. But it is, in its very essence, it's just using digital tools out there, whether that be using digital ads, that could be, trying to get yourself on the search engine results. That's one part of digital marketing. From a search perspective, if you want to get yourself in front of people through social, that will be part of digital marketing. Those are really, in its essence, showing in front of, people you want to go after with a digital tool or with the digital medium. That it's in its essence is digital marketing. However, there's, in order to do that, there's so much work that's required on the back end. Like you need to know, how do I get myself on there? How much do I have to spend on those platforms? How do I track those results? What kind of creative should I use? There's a lot of different questions that are required that you need to answer so that you get yourself on digital platforms and sell whatever you're trying to sell successfully. So that's kind of what digital marketing is, in my opinion, in its essence.
And I guess the differences to traditional marketing is just that, like you're touching on the tools, whereas.
Absolutely, that's a big part of it, right? So digital marketing, I would say, requires you to know the platform that you're working with. And there's a lot of different platforms out there. Like I said, search marketing is its own thing. There's paid search, there's organic search, which is the difference between, do you want to pay to be on the first page of Google, or do you want to be there organically through creating great content? That's one element of digital marketing, and you need to know the different tools in order to know, okay, what are people searching for out there? How can I leverage that data to my advantage? How do I use the search platform so that I can start advertising on Google, right? So those are some elements I would say that are required from a search marketing, and then there's other platforms out there from digital, right? Again, social there's all these new platforms coming out all the time, right? Facebook and Instagram were the major social advertisers back in the day, but now there's TikTok coming up now. Amazon is a big thing that's coming up now more and more recently. It used to be a duopoly between Facebook and Google, but now Amazon is now starting to eat up that pie. There's always going to be new players in this market, right? And there's going to be new platforms so that you're so that you get the best data, but also to leverage whatever platform is the best to get yourself out there.
Yes, so I think staying up to date is something to note as well with digital marketing.
Absolutely.
Yes, perfect. Now that we have a little bit of a background on the topic, let's move on to you a little bit. What made you get into this field? How did you get started?
Yeah, so just to do a quick intro for myself. So I currently lead the digital marketing strategy and execution for TELUS Home Solutions. What that means is, if you see any ads around TELUS home security, for example, out there, which we sell nationally across Canada, that's probably coming from one of my campaigns, so that we get you protected in your homes. But my job is to drive sales on TELUS.com. And to do that, you obviously need to advertise so that your ads are out there and you're driving people to your website. But at the same time, once you drive people to the website, how do you convert them? That's kind of my job in its essence. How did I get into this role? I think there's a lot of opportunities in this field now, right? Like all advertisers out there have some form of digital presence out there, and they need some kind of person or an agency to do the work for you, whether that be creating content, whether that be setting up your campaigns for the first time, um, whether that be optimizing your current campaigns. There's always people out there, and there's hundreds of brands out there, right? This market needs a lot of people, and that's kind of how I got into this field originally. I actually started out in sales, like selling digital ad space out on the internet, but then kind of found my groove in the search space first, and then grew into that role, and that's kind of where I'm at now today.
That's great to hear. I think it's providing your piece is showing us how large the field is, and your specialty is in search, correct?
Yeah, so that's kind of where I grew up, like in terms of my background. Started on organic search, and then branched out to paid search, because at the end of the day, search is getting yourself on the first page as much as you can, right? So they're always going to be related, but then at the same time, I kind of broadened my scope outside of search as well, kind of getting into paid social a little bit, display advertising, social advertising, and then yeah, kind of I try to kind of broaden my scope outside of just search, so that I have a 360 view of how to from a digital marketing perspective.
Great to hear. Can you tell us a little bit within that about your career experience and your educational background?
Yeah, absolutely. So from an educational background, do you mean just from the teaching background?
No, just your personal educational background, like what you studied in order to get into this field.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I just did a liberal arts degree actually in university. Did a 4-year degree. Got out of school, and then I knew that to break into this field, you had to educate yourself on these different platforms separately, right? So I took classes from Google specifically. There's free certifications you can take so that you can get ready for these different jobs that you're looking for. So one of them being obviously Google Analytics is a big part, right? That's a free course you can take, and it's just to certify yourself, right? It will take probably 1 to 2 weeks just to get yourself certified. Google Ads, obviously, right? That's another one. Now Google Ads has so many different certifications you can take, which are again free, but these things employers kind of expect you to have it at this point, right? So that you have these under your belt. These are great also introductions, so that what is Google looking for now in terms of what they think marketers should know as a beginner, as well as how they're kind of setting the benchmark as to what metrics you should go look for when you're setting up a campaign, how to set them up, for example. So I think those are some really easy courses, right? You can kind of get yourself ready for. At the same time, from an educational perspective, I really actually try to train myself on Excel, because Excel is a big part, I would say, in the digital marketing space. I would say I wouldn't say it's half of the work, but it is going to be certainly very helpful for you to understand, how do I manipulate data? How do I pull the data? How do I set it up so that a client or whoever you're working for is able to understand and grasp what's going on in a view, right? In a very quick view. So I think those things I kind of trained myself, and also took classes on my own, so that I can kind of break into this field and understand what are employers expecting today, and also how can I have the same conversation that they're expecting.
That's great. I think that you're focused on this like continuing education aspect of the job is a very important thing to touch on. And focusing on that, talking about the program itself, can you talk to us a little bit about the topics that are covered in the program?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the big parts of the program is, first of all, understanding how to read the data, right? Like in terms of when you're running a campaign, for example, for the first time, the technical aspects you'll learn, from taking these classes, and also, they didn't make it difficult, so that Google and Facebook, they made it not as difficult for you because they want to make sure that a lot of advertisers get in and spend the money on these platforms, right? But the hard part is understanding what's going on once you've set up the campaigns. So the big part of this class is going to be learning about, first of all, how do I understand the data out there to grasp what kind of campaigns should I set up? How should I set them up? And how do I capture the audience that I'm going after today, right? And also, once I've set up a campaign and it's run, how do what can I grasp from that, and what kind of insights can I learn from that? So I think that's one big part of the from the course. Second is obviously the technical aspects as well, right? So whether that be SEO or SEM or social or display, there's a lot of different platforms out there, and it's great to know each element of each platform and the intricacies behind each platform as well. So I think that's a big part of the program as well, is to understand the technical elements of digital marketing, as well as the qualitative aspects, right? So the reporting, as well as understanding the data, but also how to set up the campaigns themselves, and then run the campaign successfully.
That's a really great breakdown. So you have this data literacy aspect that you're talking about, which I think is a huge important thing for anyone, but specifically within this area, being able to understand data, because if you don't understand it, it's just a bunch of numbers.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and then being able to translate that into something that's effective.
Yeah, I think there's actually a really, really funny, like not a meme, but an image I saw on LinkedIn recently where it's like Lego pieces, and then kind of making them into different ways that you show data. So when you first approach a data set, it's going to be just blocks of different random pieces of data, right? But then how do you kind of put that story together for your boss or for your client or for your exec to understand, this is actually what's going on, and this is what we need to do from the data pieces that we're seeing now. That's the hard part, is to pull out the story from what you're seeing within the platforms, or from the performance that you're seeing week over week or month over month or quarter over quarter, right? So those are some of the things I think can be very difficult to learn, and it comes from experience, but also it's great to know, like, how are people kind of putting these views today, right? In the job. I think that's the difficult part. And that's what I struggle with sometimes too.
It's good to hear that but I think it's also touching on a little bit about the quality of your instructors, because a lot of them all of them are industry professionals. They are active in their fields, especially hearing your story. So I think that students will be able to learn a lot from your experience and how you're approaching the job day to day.
Absolutely.
No problem. Focusing, I guess, on this question, that's good segue to that. How is this program beneficial for students? What do you think students will enjoy or appreciate the most about the program?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first of all, is knowing what's going on today in the industry, right? So digital marketing has changed a lot since I started out. Actually, I started out almost 8 years ago, and back then there were a lot of manual elements that kind of took into place with digital marketing. More and more now, a lot of the processes are automated. You always hear about in the news headlines, AI, technology, machine learning, and those elements are actually being applied directly into the ad space. Like, if you think about it, Google, you hear about them creating something like AlphaGo and DeepMind. They're actually integrating all of these technologies for their advertising business. So they're always changing and trying to innovate and trying to automate more processes. So one of the big, I think, takeaways from this course will be understanding what's going on today and where is digital marketing going in the next 5 years, basically, right? I'm able to get a grasp of those because I work directly with Google and Facebook every day with them to understand what are the new platforms out there, how should marketers react, and also what's the most important thing for you to know today so that you can be ready for the next 5 years, right? I think that's number one. Number two is, again, you touched on this a little bit today, but is getting the real life experience and getting a glimpse of what are employers expecting you to do today, right? So I was able to go from, from zero experience to what I am today, right? And I know what the things that employers are looking for as an expectation, as well as once you're in the job, what does your day-to-day look like, right? Whether that be you're a planner or an actual campaign strategist, or who knows, you might be working in sales for digital marketing, and what's the day-to-day that you're expected to do. I think that's another big thing that you'll be able to take away from taking this class. And then thirdly is networking. This industry is full of networks, right? Like if you know someone who works in an industry and gets a referral, that's a big, big win, right? You're going to have always hundreds of applications for a lot of the openings out there. And I think creating a network of students who are kind of in the same industry and also learning together, I think that's going to be a big, big part of it. You never know. Like I have also taken classes like these ones before, and I've helped out some of my other classmates before. They've helped out me, from whether that be an actual job or a freelance gig or whatever it might be. So I think creating a network in this industry is also a big thing, because the digital ad space, more and more I'm finding, and I actually moved from Toronto last year to Vancouver, is very, very closely knitted. There's 5 big agencies here in Canada, and they all know each other. So I think creating a network of people in the same field will be very, very important. And you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of students, just from different programs, that like one of the best parts about Ashton is you really do form very close knit connections with your classmates, and these classmates become your colleagues in the future. And having these future professionals in your pocket, and as well as the instructors in your pocket, is very beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely.
A little bit of a follow-up question here. How do you stay on top of trends that trending in the how do you stay on top of trends that are happening in digital marketing?
Yeah, I think there's many different ways, right? So obviously, it's number one is reading. Like,
Yeah.
I subscribe to probably a handful of 10 to 15 journals, newsletters that come out on a daily day basis, right? I think staying on top of those trends is very, very important, whether that be, I'm going to bring search again here and as an example, but, in a given year, Google will test out 300 to 400 different variations on testing out what to change within their search engine, how they show up results in the first page, for example. What are the algorithm changes in terms of what do they now take as a criteria for success for you to show up on the first page. These things always change, and you need to adapt to these changes so that the company you're working for, or excuse me, the client that you're working for, maintains that ranking that you've won in the past, right? So you need to keep on evolving. You need to know what the rules are in the playing field so that you're continuing to be at number one. Second is, I try to stay connected with the actual companies that I work with, right? So for example, like I mentioned, Google and Facebook are big examples, but I have a ongoing relationship with them at a professional level in terms of reviewing what the results look like. What are they rolling out as a new product, for example, that we can test out? A good example is Google just rolled out a new product last year called Performance Max. And it's essentially, you give them a given budget, let's say $50,000 within 2 months, and they're able to just spend that money across all the platforms they have with completely relying on AI. So basically, you're leaving a robot to trade your media, right? This is something that we tested out, for example, and to see, hey, is this a good strategy? Is it a good product? Is this something that we can complement with all the different strategies that we have? So that's kind of the one example of staying on top of the new products that are coming out and testing it out, and then seeing where is Google going next, for example, right? I think that's second. And third is speaking with people in the industry, right? Again, like, what are you working on? What are you testing out, for example? Have you tried out this tactic? Have you tried out that tactic? So I think those are some of the ways I try to keep in touch with everything that's going on in the industry, reading in terms of what's going on outside of Canada, within Canada. Second, directly talking to the companies that are making these changes. And thirdly, again, tapping into my network and trying to see, what are you working on? Has this worked? What are your thoughts? Hey, maybe I should test it out, right? So
Yeah, that's great to hear. It's very informative as well, the different kind of ways to stay on top of it. And I think it's also good for students. I know that I'm the kind of like, I don't like to be in one place for too long, or like doing the same thing for too long. So, and I think a lot
mhm.
of people are like that. They like a dynamic job. They like a job where things are changing, things are evolving, you're evolving with it. So hearing your perspective on that, I think is very good for those type of people.
It's ever changing for sure. Yeah.
Yes. Moving on a little bit to another topic, what is your teaching style like? I know it ranges a lot between instructors.
Yeah, I try to, I like to put my students in the position of you trying to start a business for yourself, right? Like, let's
Mhm.
say you started a photography business, for example, a wedding photography business here in Vancouver. Um, how would you get yourself out there? Like, where would you start? Let's say you had a given amount of money. Let's say you had a $3,000 budget in your bank account. Like, how would you kind of get yourself started?
Mhm.
How would you use that money most effectively? Because you don't have a limited budget, right? So where would be the first thing to start? Where would be the best place to put your money? And I kind of put yourself in that shoe to see, um, so that you know what to do in that situation. Or kind of put yourself in the situation of, you're running an agency, you got your first client. How would you help them out, right? How would you get them business with the
Mhm.
given budget that you have? Probably, I'm just kind of putting myself in that situation. If I were a wedding photographer in Vancouver, probably start with building a website, right?
Mhm.
Okay, if I build a website, what do I need to do? How do I track the results that are coming onto my website? How do I track who's coming to my website? Now, how do I start viewing my website out in the world, right? Towards the people I want to reach out. That's kind of the approach I like to take. And then kind of taking my students through each step of the journey to see, hey, if you want to get yourself out there, you don't want to spend your valuable money first. How do we get yourself organically first? Creating content, so having a presence to begin with, right? And then
Mhm.
secondly, how do we start advertising, right? So first of all, if we advertise, what's the platform that would make the most sense for your business, right? You probably don't have the same budget as TELUS, for example. So you probably want to start somewhere small, right? And when you work in the space in digital marketing, you're gonna come across these kind of cases all the time. Like, whether that be you work for an agency that deals with big clients or small clients, every advertiser is gonna have a different need and a different budget, and you'll have to know how to work with that budget, and how do I use it the most efficiently. Second is kind of putting my students, connecting my students with all the real life stories that are going on today, right? Like, real business problems that are happening. So I think those are the most realistic ways to kind of get yourself into the digital marketing space, because you're going to face constantly new problems all the time, constantly new challenges, new clients, new businesses, new industries, and figure out, with the given tools I have, with the given money I have, how do I approach this problem and how do I solve it? I think those are the case by case scenarios that I like to really work with my students and see, how would you solve this? How would you go about this? And then, what are the tools available to me? And then so on.
I really like that approach. I think a lot of the time, and this is in not bashing that kind of teaching style, but I know in the past I've had a lot of professors who've really stuck to very theoretical method, and this is the knowledge, and this is the terms and everything. And while it's very valuable, I think it then becomes difficult when you are placed in the job market and you're like, how do I take this theoretical knowledge that I have and translate that to practical knowledge. And
Yeah.
what you're focusing on the cases, focusing on the tools, focusing on this is an actual scenario you have. How do you translate that? I think that's really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. And the theory is very important too. Like, don't get me
It
wrong.
is, yes.
And you need that to solve the problems, but that will come, right? Like, and
Mhm.
you don't have to know everything within the space. It is important to know bits and bits, right? But again, things are changing all the time. What you're reading today on the textbooks is going to change within a year. That's the thing, right? So to keep on reading, but understanding the core way of, developing those core creative thinking skills and how do I approach this problem and solve the problem. I think that's the main thing you'll take away from this class.
Perfect. What are your expectations of the students who enroll in the program? How much study time will students need to dedicate each week to be successful?
Yeah, so I think just like how I stay on top of digital marketing today, I'm gonna send my students like the latest articles or the latest things that are going on in the industry, right? There's always big news, whether that be a big acquisition of some Google eating another company or Amazon buying another company, right? So I think those are the things I'm going to be sending to my students on a weekly basis, so that I'm going to expect them to read these things so that they stay on top of what's going on with me, right? Because again, what I might teach the student yesterday might be different. The situation might be different tomorrow, right? Again, this is an ever-changing industry, so I really expect my students to read whatever I'm sending, whether that be an article or whether that be something or a white paper. So that's one thing. Second is to, learn to take the classes that I'm telling them to take, right? So whether that be getting yourself certified on Google Analytics, at the end of by the end of the class, that's only going to help them in the future, right? So I'm going to expect my students to at least get those bare minimums under their belt so that once they're out of this program, they're ready for the job market, right? And that I'm at the stage to feel comfortable enough to refer this person, for example.
Yes, it's all about getting the students prepped and ready.
Absolutely.
Grab branding. Great. It leads to my next question. What are the career options or typical next steps for students after they graduate from the program? I'm guessing a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of different options, I think. So, some students might be taking this, they might be already in a role. So, and they just want to advance within their own career. So that's probably one option, right? I think because digital marketing is kind of it comes across within different organizations all the time, and once there's a clear difference of people who know this as an expertise and who don't, right? So that's one thing. But secondly, it's going to open you up to a lot of different opportunities, whether that be you work in an agency, and there's many agencies out there in Canada, starting out in media planning, or it could be you go straight into the coordinator level of setting up the actual campaigns on Facebook or Google or Amazon or Pinterest or whatever it might be. You could even go into accounts. That's one thing, actually working with the clients, understanding their business problems, project managing, as well as selling more business to the clients as well. Or you could go client side, right? Like you can work for any of the big brands out there that are always looking for talent within the digital marketing space, and you lead the business really, or support the business on whether that be an in-house team that has its own search team and its own media buying team, or you work with the agencies, right? Like once you're in the client role. So I think there's a lot of ways you can kind of go after and in this space, whether that be you go client side or whether that be you go agency side. Again, this industry, people are always looking for people, and especially since the pandemic, that problem has only exacerbated, where people are looking for more people all the time.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's that idea of like some jobs haven't even been created yet within digital marketing. With technological advances, you never know what is going to be created in the next few years.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Sorry. Hi. Yeah. We got a question from Facebook. Facebook Live. So what is your most favorite or most interesting part about working in marketing or working in the industry?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say it's the different new problems that come with it, right? Again, when I worked on the agency side, it was really interesting because every client I worked for had a different problem based on the industry. So like, for example, if you're working with a client in the in government versus in food and beverage, for example, you're gonna have completely different sets of problems and different KPIs to track, and also what determines as your success. So that's really interesting. Every time I worked with a different client back in the agency times, I had to learn that industry completely new and understand how do I kind of approach that problem basically. Secondly is that again, like this industry is continuously changing, and you're knowing like, wow, this is kind of where the world is going in terms of advertising, but also just from a technological perspective as well, right? Because we face ads every day. Advertisers are always trying to get your attention, and how they're trying to get your attention is always changing.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Moving on to my next question. What advice would you give to students who are brand new to the industry or changing careers from something that's radically different?
Yeah, I think number one is that, again, try to understand that critical thinking goes a long way, right? So, and I mentioned this many times like during this session, that's going to be not only important in digital marketing, but many other industries out there. But it's going to be very helpful for you once you're in this role, because again, you're going to be dealing with a lot of different sets of numbers every day, and you'll have to make a decision on a daily basis in terms of, do I keep spending money on this campaign, or is this tactic working? Is this going the right way or the wrong way, right? You're gonna have to make hundreds of decisions on a week-to-week basis. And I think number one, developing that critical thinking skill will be very important. And secondly, again, keeping yourself updated with what's going on, all right? And get interested in what's going on. Where's Google going? Where's Meta going, right? Where's Amazon going? And once you're kind of on top of those things, I think you'll find yourself much easier to learn. Like, this is how these are the kind of the playing fields that these companies are creating, and you'll have an way easier way of navigating through it.
Mm-hmm. That's good to hear. I think reiterating on the past points you've made as well. And it kind of leads me to this next question, because you did touch on critical thinking. What qualities or characteristics makes people best suited for the career path?
I think continuous curiosity, that's one thing. Again, like continuously questioning what you're looking at, what you're facing through, and then coming up with a decision plus your own thoughts about what's going on. And secondly, it's quantitative and qualitative, right? Number one, you need to obviously know how to analyze the data sets you're looking at, and then create a good story based on that. And the qualitative aspect is, again, a good communication skill to kind of translate the numbers into a story. I think that's going to be a very challenging part.
Yeah. So not only having the critical thinking, qualitative ability to analyze the numbers, look at the numbers, but also how to translate that. It's almost like being a translator, I guess, of this data into a medium that makes sense to clients, to your company. Leading to my next question, how has the industry changed during your years of experience? You've said it's changed a lot so far.
Yeah, I would say, first of all, it's become less manual in a lot of ways. So back in the day, even if you were setting up like a search campaign, there's a thing called match types, where you have to you basically let the platform know, I want to target the keywords exactly this way, which is an exact match, or a broad match, which means I'll be more fluid with how I target the keywords. Like if I'm, for example, targeting ice cream, it might be showing up for like chocolate bar ice creams and or like ice cream cakes or whatever it might be, right? But then when you have to set up those campaigns back in the day, you have to create each separate campaign line items, make them separate, but all that's gone now from paid search. That's how I was learned to do it back in the day. But more and more these platforms are making it simpler in a way to set up the campaigns, because they're bleeding more into automation, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of moving to the direction of, pushing the budget, pushing the creatives. We will find the best performing audiences or targeting methods based on what we know of Facebook or Google, right? So I think that's the direction that the industry is leading to. And I think the important part is to always be skeptical of all of that, number one. And also number two, use that to your advantage, right? Like the automation parts of it, like, because a lot of the manual work has been eliminated. But I think knowing what the machine does versus the human, right? You're always going to need the human to strategize, report on things, and to pull insights from things, right? The machine is really good at doing manual, repetitive work. And the industry has gotten rid of a lot of those elements. But again, the human is always required to kind of complement the automation part, whether that be pulling out insights, reporting, or many other elements, right? I think the machine still can't do. I think I've really seen that change in the last 8 years in terms of automation becoming a part of your day-to-day activities, which has really been helpful because it's gotten rid of a lot of the repetitive manual work, which sometimes could be very dull.
Yes.
But it has become a lot more challenging in a lot of ways because now you're expected to, again, kind of complement what the automation by pulling out insights or strategizing. That's become a lot more important part of being a marketer.
Yeah, I was just about to ask if you think that the automation, if it's aided or if it's maybe become a hindrance to kind of the originality of certain marketing like focuses. But I guess that you're mentioning it's helped, but it's also made it, a little bit more challenging.
I would say it's I think the elements that you're required to do has changed slightly again because sometimes back in the coordinator level in 2015, for example, you might have to just literally change. You might have to just do Excel so that you set up the Excel format to be uploaded onto a platform easily, right? But now a lot of those elements have been eliminated, and now your job is more likely looking at what the machine is doing, but also kind of stepping in to see, okay, maybe this is not the right way to target. Maybe this is a way better way to kind of set up this campaign. And also continuously testing things out. I think that's become a lot more important. I think nowadays is to continuously testing new platforms, but also continuously testing out new, tools given by AI, and also pulling out the insights to see, hey, this one works, this one doesn't, etc. So
a little bit of trial and error within that.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think the industry is at a stage where like the machine hasn't completely taken over, but it might get there in the next 5 years, in my opinion. And our role as a marketer will be completely different by then, in a lot of ways. So.
Perfect. I do want to open up the floor now to any questions that anybody has. You can unmute yourself, or you can leave any questions you have in the comment box, and then I can ask Justin.
Hello, Justin. Although I don't know if anyone's going to speak up now, but I do have a question of my own.
Sure.
So the amount of throughout this whole info session, you talked about a lot of different software that people are using. It goes from one end of the spectrum to the other in terms of the whole umbrella of marketing. Then let's say in your specific field, if you want to narrow it down, what are some of the common digital marketing software used? Or maybe if not specifically to yours, then how about maybe some basic ones or commonly used ones throughout the whole umbrella term?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Google Ads is like number one. Like it's search. You can also run display campaigns on Google, like the simple ones. And also YouTube campaigns, you can run them on Google Ads, like the simple ones as well. So any Google platforms, number one, right? Because they kind of own the industry. They own search. They also own most of the display ads that you see out there. They own most of the inventory out there. So they have a massive network, and in result, they have a lot of different platforms that you have to get accustomed to, right? Most of their revenue is from ads. Like I think they had they make billions and billions of dollars through this, and in result, they have a lot of platforms. So Google Ads, Google Analytics, those are the number two, like two main things I even use to this day. And then there's more other ones, right? Like I personally like knowing what's going on from a keyword level perspective. Like what are people searching for today? How much is that volume? Has that dropped or increased? That goes kind of more into the search platforms, and you're gonna have to go with platforms like SEMrush. Ahrefs is a big one that I like to use on a day-to-day basis. Facebook marketing platform, that's another one. Obviously, on a day-to-day basis, we use a lot. And then from a reporting perspective, there's a lot of options out there, right? So you can go Google dashboarding using the Google dashboard. There's at TELUS, we use like Tableau, for example, for reporting, and Datorama from Salesforce. There's a lot of different tools out there. And then one that I'm like exploring to use right now is a platform called Zapier, for example. I don't know if you heard of it before, but it's a platform that connects different platforms together. So for example, if I wanted to connect Facebook to Salesforce. So if I drive some leads on Facebook, how do I send them to Salesforce automatically without me doing anything? Zapier kind of does that, right? So that's one platform I'm kind of exploring as well. Based on the organization, you're also going to see Adobe Analytics very often, which a lot of companies have both Google and Adobe. So yeah, and I just touched on a lot of different platforms within literally ad tech, web reporting, and dashboarding, right? So again, you already listed out like 3 different platform and also use cases basically. So you're gonna have to work with a lot of variety of platforms. And then lastly, Excel is a big one. Yeah.
I never knew how important Excel was until talking to you. And then now I'm like, I need to get on Excel and start learning a bit of it more.
Yeah, Excel/Google Sheets for sure. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Is there any other questions anyone wants to ask?
Well, if no one wants to ask anything, I'm very intrigued on this whole topic. If no one's gonna ask, could I ask one more question? This probably could be the last one.
Sure.
Yeah.
If no one is gonna say anything, no one. Okay. So what did you find was the biggest difference between what you expected working in marketing and how it actually is? So like expectations versus reality, kind of thing.
I think that's a good question. My expectation is that, and it really based on like what role you take in the marketing field, right? Like I thought it would be when I first joined the team on search, a lot more creative elements that went into it at the time, but a lot of it when I entered the industry was data crunching. Again, like I talked a lot about like what's going on and understanding what's going on. That's a big element of it, and I had to do a lot of that, like in terms of like finding trends, understanding what are people searching for. I had to do a lot of those exercises, and I was like, wow, is digital marketing just like Excel work? Like, and that's why I really keep on talking about Excel here. And then once I got into a more 360 role where I had to deal with things outside of search, I had to deal with social, display, and content, all that stuff. That's when I realized, wow, creative is a huge thing. Like as in, I would say it's 50% of the work sometimes, right? And more and more I'm realizing actually to this date, your strategy is very important. How do you set up the campaigns is very important, but your creative is like 50% of the work. And I never realized that until very recently, actually, more and more. Like I really understanding the impact of creatives and how that has to work very closely with your strategy at the same time always. That's number one. Number two is that I was surprised at how many people doesn't know digital marketing. Like as in the company, for example, a lot of the times you be the specialist and you be the expert to kind of go to, because again, like it requires a lot of different disciplinaries. Like I said, like if you're a digital marketer, you have to know how to run ads, read website reporting, as well as analyze that data and speak intelligently through that, right? Not a lot of folks out there can do those things. I've more and more realized, right? And do it well. And once you know how to do those things very well, you'll be you will be considered a very valuable asset in the company, wherever you work for, like agency side or client side. Like maybe it's just not, like maybe it's just a very important element in any job to kind of speak intelligently through data and kind of create insights that are really helpful. But I've realized not a lot of folks can do it out there. And I think it's really, really important to learn those elements, whatever industry that you go into. So,
Perfect.
so yeah.
Good to know. Thank you.
Actually, I really want to go on this one more time. I know, I want to make it the last one. I am very intrigued right now.
I know, Adam, that we're running
So,
over time.
oh yeah, all right, then, it's all right.
It's okay. One more question.
Sure.
Oh yes, thank you. Because you say that creatives are 50%.
Yes.
Can you learn that skill, or can you build that characteristic, or however, in this course that Ashton could provide? Can you learn this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think in this class as well, I'm sure there's also other classes within Ashton as well that can help on like specific skills like copywriting and stuff like that, right? Because that's a whole nother job. But I think it's very important for a digital marketer to know, like, what should I test out? How can I work with the creative team specifically, right? Or you might have to be the creative team based on your circumstances, I think. So I think knowing like good examples of what's, case studies of what's worked, what's not, will be very, very good, right? In terms of, there's a lot of brands out there that are testing things all the time, like whether that be Coca-Cola or TELUS or wherever. Recently, we tested out something with creatives within a TELUS side, trying to see like, how do we position offers, right? Like, how do we position it as a discount or a couple dollars off, or not even just mentioning the discount at all and just going straight with the value prop. Like, these are some of the things that you want to test out. And I think it's going to be different based on the industry or the circumstance you're in. But yeah, I think you're gonna learn from that. Because I like to kind of connect real life experiences and case studies with this class. So.
All right, thank you so much. All right, I'm done.
No, thank you for the great questions. That was honestly, I think, expanded our conversation a little bit, and it's good to hear about the creative side of the program as well. Justin, do you have any final thoughts that you would like to share with us?
No, I think we went through a lot of things today. I think one last thing I just want to kind of end with is that, yeah, this program is going to open you up to a lot of things you've never heard of before. You might have a lot of questions. So I'm going to work with you, obviously, to make sure that you understand everything. But I also expect you to read what's going on with the industry with me, right? I'm going to be sharing things that I'm learning for the first time with you, and kind of ask you, what do you think about this, right? And also, do you have any thoughts? I'm sure everyone's going to come from different disciplines as well and different backgrounds, and I think we can all learn from those experiences, right? And different perspectives. So I'm really looking forward to working with you, but also learning from you at the same time. So yeah.
Thank you again so much for taking the time to join us today. This has been a really insightful conversation, honestly, and I've learned a lot. And I really think the students are going to be very lucky to have you in their class. You seem like a very open teacher, and it's good to see that in our faculty.
Awesome. Thanks for the kind words.
No problem. To anyone, to find out more information, you can find all the links in the description, or check out the website to read all about the program information and the registration process. Thank you again for joining me today, and have a great rest of your day.